Alright, you guys, we're going to be looking at lesson 4.2, solving equations using multiplication and division. And so this process works the same exact way as 4.1 when we were solving using addition and subtraction. We follow our same steps from before. Our first step, we're going to chop, then we're going to box, and then we're going to do the opposite. Okay, and so when we're talking about multiplication and division, like if this is my chart here, and if it's doing multiplication, I'm going to draw an X for multiplication so that we understand, then the opposite of multiplication is division. And if it's doing division, the opposite is going to be multiplication. This is nothing new. You did this last year. It's just we've got some integers we're working with now. So let's get started with the lesson. So we've got solve x divided by 3 equals -6. I'm going to rewrite it so that I have plenty of room. Remember, if I write it, you should be writing this down on your notes as well. So we've got our 3 steps. We're going to chop it, we're going to box it, and we're going to look to do the opposite. So right now it's currently division, so the opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by 3. 3 times, this becomes 1/3 basically. And so 3 times this ends up being 3/3, which is equal to 1, which really doesn't change anything. They're each other's multiplicative inverse. That's really not important to you guys. The only thing you should know is that by doing the opposite, it cancels. And for whatever I do on one side, I've got to do to the other. So I have -6, that's important to remember, times +3, which is going to give me -18. Okay? Alright, let's look at example, before we look at example B, let's see. So we also talked about how we can substitute to check that make sure that we're right. So we are claiming that x is -18. So when I go back into the original problem, x divided by 3 equals -6, I can replace this x with -18. And then I can try, does -18 divided by 3, that gives me -6, does that equal -6? Well, because we get the same answer, then I know I did this correct. So we also want to check our answers through substitution. Now we can look at part B. So with part B, I've got 18 equals -4 times y. Remember, when a number is next to a variable, it means multiplication. So I'm going to chop it. I'm going to box it. I'm going to do the opposite. The goal is to get the variable all by itself. So we look for the side with the variable. Well, that everything else on that side has to move away. So that -4 that is being multiplied has got to move to the other side, and the only way we can move it to the other side is by doing the opposite operation. So currently we have multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is going to be division. So I'm going to divide by -4. That's going to cancel. I'm going to come over here, divide by -4. If I were to punch that into my calculator, I'm going to punch it in as a fraction, because if I don't, it'll turn into a decimal. So I'm going to do it'll give me -9/2 equal y. Okay? So like I said, nothing too drastically different than what we did last year. We just got some negatives we have to pay attention to. Alright, so I want you to try number 1 on your own real quick. I'm going to give you about 60 seconds to try that. Alright, so what you should have done is you should have chopped it, boxed it, and you should have done the opposite, or x equals, I've multiplied by 5 on both sides, and so I should have got x equals -10. Now I want us to look at number 2. Number 2 is really interesting. We've got negative a equals negative 24. We've talked about this before, but what do we put in front of a variable when it's all by itself? We put a 1, that's right. So really we have negative 1a equals negative 24. So when I chop it and box it, really it's not by itself because it's got this negative 1 here that we need to move to the other side doing the opposite operation. So right now this a is being multiplied by a negative 1 and we want to divide it by negative 1 to get rid of it and move it to the other side. So now I have negative 24 divided by negative 1, which gives me 24. So a equals 24. And so we can go back in and check our solution to see if it is correct. So I can come back here, I'm saying that a is 24. So my original problem is negative a equals 24. I can come in here and replace or substitute a with regular 24. Oops, if I copied the problem now correctly. Okay? Does negative 24 equal negative 24? It does, so this has to be my answer. Okay, moving right along. Number 3, we're going to chop it, box it. We're going to do the opposite. So currently it's doing multiplication, so we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to divide by negative 1.5. 3 divided by negative 1.5. And I'm going to end up with negative 2 equals n. Okay? Alright, number 4, when you see these like 4, 5, and 6, I don't want you to get confused by them or bogged down. Really what we've got going on here is we've got negative 8/5 times b equals 5. And when I chop it and box it, I want to do the opposite. So currently it's multiplication, and to undo multiplication I have to divide by negative 8/5, and that's going to cancel. And so I have to do that over on the other side. I have to divide by negative 8/5. Now what beautiful thing is, y'all get to use your calculator, and you can punch it straight in your calculator, and it'll tell you your answer. So y'all go ahead and do that. 5 divided by negative 8/5. And you should get negative 25 over 8. Good deal? Alright, so I want you to try number 5 and number 6. Like I said, I'm going to give you about 60 seconds to do that, and go. Alright, so what we should have done is we should have chopped it, boxed it, and we're going to do the opposite. So currently it's 3/8 times h, so I'm going to divide by 3/8 on both sides. Those are going to cancel. I'm going to bring my h down because it's all by itself now. And when I plug negative 9 divided by 3/8 into my calculator, I should have gotten negative 24. And for number 6, I chopped it, boxed it. I'm going to do the opposite, so I'm going to divide by 2/3 on both sides. So negative 14 divided by 2/3 gives me negative 21 equals x. Okay? Alright, so we're not going to stress about these down here at the bottom, because I want you, if you turn the page, I want you to do those on the back right here. So I'm going to ask Miss Savant to pause the video and give y'all, let's say, 10, 15 minutes, however long it takes y'all to finish these. And I want you to finish these. And then I'm going to have her stop the video and show you the next slide on the Smart Notebook, and y'all are going to check your answers. Okay? And then we'll come back to the video and we will go over one of the word problems on the next page. Okay? So do these 12 through 27. Finish those. Put it in the grid below. And then once everybody's finished that, you're going to check your answers back on the Smart Notebook. And then if we still have time, we'll come back to the video and do one of the word problems. Okay? Alright, so hopefully you have finished those problems and we did really well on them. We're going to actually skip a couple of these problems for now. We're going to skip the first one, we're going to skip the second one, and we're going to look at this one right here talking about the soccer cleats. Okay, so just like what we did with the 4.1 where we had to find some keywords and decode it and things, we're going to do that here. So it says you make a profit of 75 cents for every bracelet you sell. So what important words do we have here in this first sentence? Well, profit means it's a positive. So we've got positive 75 cents because profit's what we want. We're making money. That's a positive thing. So we're making 75 cents for every bracelet. So what operation is that when we're talking about every bracelet? Multiplication. That's right. Do we know how many bracelets we're selling at this point? No. I'm going to keep reading to see if we ever figure out what or how many bracelets we are selling. Okay? It says, write and solve an equation to determine how many bracelets. Look, we don't know how many bracelets you must sell in order to earn enough money to buy the soccer cleats shown. So over here's our soccer cleats, and it's got a price tag on it. It's $36. So we know whatever we have has to equal at least $36 so that we can buy these cleats. So I'm going to go back to my important information. I know 75 cents for every bracelet. And I know that every means multiplication, and I don't know how many bracelets I've sold. That's my unknown. And when I have an unknown, I have to put a variable in. Okay, so we're going to call it X. So I've got 75 cents times X. Trying to figure out that bracelet. Okay, how many bracelets. And so now I just have a regular equation like we saw on the other ones. All I have to do is chop it, box it, and do the opposite. So currently we have multiplication, so the opposite is going to be division. So I've got 75 cents divided by 75 cents. That cancels. Then I've got 36 divided by 75 cents, which gives me, put it in your calculator, see what you get. And you get 48. So you would have to make 48 bracelets in order to buy your soccer cleats. Okay? Alright, that's all I got for you today. Hopefully you worked hard, you got your answers right, and tomorrow we will do some more practice together. Okay?